welcome to the next devlog for my game Brainroll, and this time we're gonna have a bit of a different format. I'm going to go through some of the findings I learned during my vacation, you could say. So basically I didn't spend my time during Christmas writing that much code. Instead I was researching other games, trying to find out how to develop a better puzzle game. And basically what I came up with is a set of points that I found interesting or important, important enough that I want to talk about them. So this video is gonna be some of the ideas that I want to implement into the game Brainroll, and yeah, we're gonna look at some other games, puzzle games specifically, to see how they do it, and we're gonna talk about some good things, some bad things. Yeah, let's get into it. So first of all, when building a puzzle game, almost everyone learns this when you're browsing the web or you're getting started, is that you're gonna have to figure out a core mechanic for your game. And this is something that traditionally you want to be very simple. I prefer if it's explainable in a single sentence. And while it can be very simple, it can later be enhanced by several other mechanics later if needed. So all games or all mechanics doesn't even require this. So if we look at a puzzle platformer game called Braid, it's a popular puzzle game that was known because it introduced a mechanic where you could rewind time. Everyone loved this concept, but rewinding time by itself is it's cool, like it's an interesting mechanic. But later Jonathan Blow, who made the game, found that, or experimented with some objects not being affected by this power of rewinding time. And now if you rewind time and some objects respond to it and some not, you're introducing this whole new set of states which can put like the world, a whole new set of states that the world can be in, and this allows for more possible interesting puzzles for you to explore. The game Portal, that the whole idea of that game is that you're in control of this portal gun, which you can like shoot at the wall to open a portal. You can shoot two times, two different portals, one entrance and one exit, and then you can like walk around, transporting yourself through these portals around different levels. And that's the core mechanic that they chose. But for their secondary mechanics, what they did is that they introduced all these other entities or objects in the game that interact very well with these portals. So for example, you have a box, you can bring the box with you inside, like through these portals. You have lasers that can like pass through the portals and end up somewhere else, and you get the idea. Looking at this, I found out what I like the most is the games that I like to call it lay all the cards on the table. So I like the games that even in the first level they show you the entire game. Like this is what you're seeing right now in the first level, that's the game. But a really good example of this is Steven's Sausage Roll. Like starting up this game, what you see, like your character and everything in the world, that's the game. Like this is what you're gonna be playing, and there's nothing new introduced like between the levels. Instead, what you find out is like moving through the levels, you understand more like what everything is. Like if we move on to the next slide, in the first picture here we have a screenshot of Steven's Sausage Roll. You see the little guy in the middle of the screenshot holding a fork is what it's supposed to look like. This is the guy, and at first you don't know like why does he even have a fork? Like what does he do? Nothing of this makes sense, but as you progress through the game, all of these questions are gonna be answered in a very interesting way. And comparing this to something like Heroes of Sokoban, it's a good game, like made in Puzzle Script, available for free, I think. Which is a screenshot of that game to the right. So you can already see here that there's a lot of more things that matters on the screen, like comparing this to Steven Sausage Roll, like the different tiles and stuff doesn't really, it's just for aesthetics, while in this game every different tile has some sort of meaning. So like the plants, the different characters, all of this serves a purpose. And while this is fine, I feel like it's more interesting the way that Steven Sausage Roll did it, like having everything just in front of you, and then you can explore it and understand it instead of new things popping up as you progress through the game. While this is not a bad thing, what we have in Heroes of Sokoban in this example, it is, I would say, it is something you should strive for, to do what Steven Sausage Roll did here, to have like everything in front of you. It enhances this exploration feeling and revelation that you get when you understand things in the game. Like, yeah. So moving on, I also really played a lot with the idea of linear versus non-linear puzzle games. So, what a linear puzzle game is, if you look at Brainroll today, what you have is that you press play, you are getting spawned into a level, and then within this level you have to reach the goal, and then you're done, you're taken to the next level. This is a linear game. You can't really skip ahead, you can't really do anything, you're just in a level, solve it, go to the next. A game like The Witness, it's a really good puzzle game, also made by Jonathan Blow. Here you have a more interesting way of allowing the player to explore, in my opinion, where you're dropped in this world. It's an open world, you could say, and it's up to you to explore and find the puzzles that you want to solve. And if you don't want to solve a puzzle, you can just move past it. You don't have to solve it. And this gives you also some very interesting possibilities, for the reason that making the player walk around and explore also gives you, like, it enhances this possibilities of allowing the player to get this revelation. Like moving to one puzzle you maybe don't understand, like for example the screenshot I'm showing on the screen right now, you maybe don't understand what's going on here, even though this is one of the first tutorial puzzles that you're going to stumble upon. Maybe you don't understand it. You can move past it, and sometimes in the game, in this game, The Witness, sometimes that's the whole point of the puzzle. You're supposed to move past them, because the answer to how to solve this is something that you're gonna learn later on. And this is just like Steven Sausage Roll, really interesting. Like you have everything in front of you, but it's up to you to understand it. It has to click for you before you can before you really can appreciate it on a deeper level. This next point is maybe something that you've heard before. You shouldn't have tutorials in your game. And while this is true, like many AAA games that I've played wouldn't survive without these tutorials, because there's so much illogical things that you would never like understand by your own, like on your own, just exploring the game. You you would never reach the end of the game. You would just try to understand everything, and you wouldn't understand everything because it's so complex. Screenshot, where we have a screenshot of the game The Witcher 2, I believe, and you can see here on the screen where it's a part of the tutorial where you're supposed to cast a magical spell on some guy, I think. And you can see just by looking, if we filter out the text on the screen, what you have is like this scroll wheel with different symbols that you don't understand, and you have to select the right one and then use it. So these types of games often also include advanced crafting systems, skill trees, everything. And if you were not using text in these types of games to explain all of that, you would drive so much focus on things that are not the core game that you would have so much content that it would take away from the main idea of the game. But this problem does not exist in the same way in small indie games. You have all the possibilities in your game to force the player to learn what he's doing by forcing them to experiment, or just find things by exploration. So how I tackle this in Brainroll is that, for example, in the first few levels, there is no mechanics on the screen except for walls. You're just supposed to learn how to move. The fact that your character slides across the ice and you can't control him while he's sliding, that's the whole point. Later, you have easier levels where you get to learn the new things as they come. And this is something that you can try to do when you design your puzzles or your puzzle games. Another thing to emphasize a bit on when talking about this type of design is to also include a lot of freedom in this exploration phase. Like when someone is learning something, they need to be able to experiment in order to find the right solution. Like maybe you just test your way and you accidentally complete. You go to the goal, but you didn't really understand it. So allowing a lot of freedom for the player gives you that room for learning things. This next slide I want to talk a bit about level design language, and this is also something that I learned during Christmas, or I don't know, it just this is not something that I really learned from anyone. I just found this like I found this to be a good way for me to think about designing puzzles in order to make them make more sense, or make me design better levels. So I'm gonna go into Paint here, and this is a level in Brainroll. Let me just check that. Yeah. So this is a level within Brainroll. I'm gonna take red color. Okay. So what I mean with a language for your design is that for me it has helped a lot to be able to reason about things that the player has to do, like the different actions or paths they have to take by specific terms. It doesn't have to be that, but that's the way I do it. So for example, if you just look at this level, what the player would have to do is simply move here, pick this guy up, go back, and then go up, and then you're gonna have this guy on the you're gonna have the guy, the sleepy brain, on your right as you move here. So you're gonna end up on this tile, and the guy is gonna be here. So let's break this down. What is the player doing here? You're sliding on the ice in order to move, right? And you're colliding with this brain roll here, this brain. When you collide with him, you're like connecting him to you, and then you're basically dragging him with you back to where you were, and then progressing up in the level, and you're basically using him as a padding, an extra padding to this wall here. It's almost like if you were picking up a wall and moving it across the level in order to be able to reach this goal. It's almost like you added an extra tile here. That's what you're doing. So when I talk about a language here, what I mean is basically that I created a vocabulary or words for these concepts. So for example, in this level specifically, what I call this padding, this sub mechanic to the sleepy guys. So in this level you have to use a brain roll as a padding in order to be able to reach this goal. And I went through all my levels many times trying to figure out what am I asking the players to do here? What is this? And that way I have these types of names or ideas for things that I'm making the player do, and by doing this I basically built up a set of sub mechanics for this mechanic. So I have like padding. You have the sleepy guys with paddings. You can sling them around corners. You can arrange them in certain ways. So all of these types of things I'm asking the player to do, I had named something. Last but not least, I want to talk a bit about designing forwards and backwards. So maybe we can use a blank sheet of to draw on here. So when I first started on this game, what I usually did, I'm just gonna draw like an outline for a level here. What I usually found myself doing is, okay, I decided for a size, a random. I didn't even think that much about it. I decided for a certain size in width and height, and then I put down a goal. So here's a flag, and then I put down a start position for the player. This is what I did, and then I looked at the level and said, okay, I'm gonna solve this level. So player has to go here and then up, and he's done. What I did then is that I identified, okay, so the player tries to go this way, I'm gonna block this path so he can't go this way anymore. Okay, so what happens now? Okay, but then the player's just gonna go upwards here. Okay, well, I'm gonna block that path as well. Okay, so now the player has to do, well, the player has to go here. Oh, he can't, he's gonna end back up here. Okay, but then we can go here and then we can solve the level. And so on, you get the idea. I looked at where the goal is and I tried to continuously like block the path. You can't reach the goal. And while I call this designing backwards, and I think that this is not the right way to design puzzles, because you're almost artificially making these puzzles harder. So when you play maybe you create a big level doing this. Later when you're playing it, you're gonna feel like it's not that well thought out. Like the idea behind it is not really that interesting. That's what I ended up with, at least. So how do you solve this? That's actually very interesting. So what I learned and what I'm doing now is that I don't even start with this this entire drawing. I don't do this anymore. What I do is I don't even look at a screen or anything. I'm gonna sit with pen and paper, and I'm gonna start with just an idea. I'm just gonna think of I'm gonna think of like something unique. that I want to do, and then I'm gonna later, when I have that idea, I'm gonna go into the like the way I make levels, and I'm gonna try to make that idea reality. For example, one idea would be, okay, I'm gonna have the players start out with being connected to this other guy, and the whole purpose of the level is to move him so he's connected, like instead of on your right, he's gonna be connected on your head or on top. So going into designing a level knowing that is gonna help you much more, because it's not just gonna be obstacles trying to hinder you from reaching where you want to go. You're actually gonna have like a small thing, it's gonna serve its purpose, and then you're done. Like, it's nothing weird about it. You're just, yeah, it's just more thought out. And an interesting side effect from doing this is that you're gonna end up with some ideas that you have that are not gonna work, and then you're at a crossroads where you're gonna have to decide, am I gonna change my game to make this work, or am I gonna skip this idea, it doesn't work, it's not for this game, and then move on. So that's an interesting choice to make. But with that said, that is all the things that I had for this this small presentation or talk. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a new devlog later on explaining the new mechanic that I added in the game, because it's actually interesting. So until then, thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and take care.